Hello again, boxing world, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Bout Hour, the channel dedicated to bringing you fantasy matchups on a regular basis. If there's a particular matchup you'd like me to cover, please leave it in the comments section, and I promise to honor your request. Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the bell notification. Canelo Alvarez and Demetrius Andrade. Let's get into it. So Andrade is one of the three fighters that Canelo is accused of ducking or avoiding. Benavidez and Charlo is on that list. And this is talked about so much that I just felt the need to make a video on it and to give my prediction on a winner. Demetrius Andrade. Let's talk about him for a second. He has the reputation for being avoided. With reputation being the word. He has a reputation for being avoided. He apparently has a hard time getting anyone to fight him or landing big matchups. So I will say that he does have an awkward style, awkward southpaw style. He does some awkward things. So he has the style that can give a lot of fighters trouble. A slick southpaw with great movement, great counterpunching abilities. So, he's just a different fighter, a good fighter, a decent fighter, and just has a unique, awkward style. So, it's not that far-fetched to say that people are avoiding him. But I will say that there's some holes there, and it's no disrespect to him because every fighter has holes. Every fighter has something that can be exploited. But for all of his slickness, for all of his movement, he doesn't have great speed. He throws his punches wide. He throws his punches extremely wide, and an elite counterpuncher like Canelo could definitely exploit that. Sometimes we forget how accurate Canelo is with his punches. And Canelo has underrated hand speed. Canelo has quick hands, coupled with power. And that's a dangerous combination. And Costa Tszyu, he's just like Costa Tszyu in that regard. Quick hands with power. Everything Canelo throws, he throws with power. And that's his best attribute, his counterpunching abilities. Honestly, I don't see why Canelo would be avoiding Andrade. Now, I never make excuses for why a fighter doesn't take a certain fight, because I want to see all of them fight, and I want to see them fight all the time, and I want to see them fight each other. So this is not what this is about, but I just kind of want to address the ducking and avoidance claims. For as good as Andrade is, he's not marketable just yet. He doesn't do the numbers. And he doesn't fight enough. I wish these fighters would stop being so inactive and fight more often. I'm not even saying to fight at the frequency that the past fighters fought. But just at least 2 fights a year. At least 2 fights a year to create the demand for the fights that you want to see. But sitting on the sidelines for 2 years at a time, I'm just hoping that someone gives you a shot. That's just not the way that it works. It's never worked that way. And this current generation of fighters seems to think that it does. I'm not suggesting to get in there and take unnecessary punishment and just fight all the time until you kill yourself. But if you claim that you're the best, you claim you want the fights, that you want the big fights, the fans are going to have expectations. And I wish everyone would stop sitting on their undefeated records. This generation of fighters, or the boxing world in general, we worship that O. We love that O. And no one wants to risk it. And if you want to be great, you have to take some risk. If you want Canelo, you have to take some risk. Just sitting around, being inactive, protecting your O. I'm thinking you're going to get a payday. It's not going to happen. No disrespect. I mean, if I was in your shoes, I'd want a payday too. I mean, but you have to fight. You have to fight. You have to stay active. So, as far as the stylistic aspects of the fight, and fans, I feel that so many people dislike or hate Canelo so much that they're not being honest about his skill set, that they're not being honest about how good he is, how tough he is, and how dangerous he is. You know, of course, there's certain styles that has given him trouble in the past, and Canelo is not the only one who has had controversial wins. Floyd Mayweather has had controversial wins. Sugar Ray Leonard has had controversial wins. It just happens in boxing, you know, but don't let those controversial wins overshadow the legacy of the fighters. I mean, be honest about his skill set. Like I said in my last video, I'm not saying that you have to be a diehard fan. I'm not saying that you have to fall in love with the guy, but to just totally dismiss everything. You know, I mean, we just have to be honest sometimes. And sometimes we just have to give credit where credit is due. You know, I don't mean to come off as a Canelo fan. I'm going to be as objective as possible, but I'm just looking at things realistically, I feel. I'm just looking at things more objectively than most, I feel. You know, so every win Canelo has can always be explained away. And fans did the same thing to Floyd. And it's not right. It's not right. I mean, give credit where credit is due. Oh, well, they fought them past their prime. Well, they fought them before their prime, or this and that, and so on and so forth. Well, their opponent really wasn't ready. He handpicked them. He ducked them. Because let's be honest. If Canelo decided to fight Andrade instead of Plant, you would be asking why Canelo ducked Plant to fight Andrade. I mean, it's a no-win situation for Canelo. So let's get into the actual fight. Andrade would have some moments, not a lot of moments, because Canelo would figure him out. You know, Andrade just doesn't have the speed to compete with Canelo. And Andrade, he throws some good shots, but you don't see him getting countered by throwing his shots wide and looping. He's inviting the counter punches from Canelo. You don't think that Canelo would figure him out? Yeah, I mean, there are some things with Andrade, and he's good, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I feel that we're overrating him just to spite Canelo. And as good as Andrade is, he has a tendency to swing for the fences. He has a tendency to swing for the fences. You don't think that an experienced, skilled, seasoned fighter like Canelo wouldn't take advantage of that? And the way that Canelo has adjusted to just about any style. You really think that Andrade could beat Canelo? And if you do, I respect your opinion. And as I always say, this is boxing. Anything can happen. Anything could happen. I mean, you really don't know till you get in the ring, but just based on everything that we've seen. And I'm just trying to get people to think. You really think that Andrade could beat Canelo? And just my opinion, I feel that Plant is better than Andrade. So is Canelo ducking these guys, or he just wants to fight the most marketable opponent? Because at the end of the day, you have to make money. And once again, I'm not making excuses as to why certain fights aren't taking place, because I want to see them all. I want to see everybody fight everybody. But at the same time, one man can't fight everyone. And it's not always avoidance. It's not always ducking. Now, there are some instances to where ducking is obvious. Someone is obviously ducking. Someone obviously doesn't want to fight a certain fighter. But I really don't think, and I can't read Canelo's mind, but there is nothing that indicates that Canelo is actually ducking these guys. And so, Andrade is decent. Andrade is decent. I don't think he's the boogeyman that everyone is making him out to be. I feel he needs to fight more often. You know, don't sit out for 2 years again. You don't need to do that. That's a bad idea. You know, get in the ring, fight often, build yourself up, build your name up, and become a star. You know, there's other fights out there. Andrade versus Charlo. And Andrade may have to go up to 168 at some point. I mean, Canelo is not, you can't expect the champion to chase you. You have to chase the champion. So your best bet on getting the fight is going up to 168. And so, and these challengers, you know, or the B-side, underdog, what have you, you know, they want the champions to chase them. That's not the way it works. You have to fight Canelo on his terms. So, you know, Demetrius, you're not going to land the Canelo fight just sitting around. I'm just sitting around. You have to fight at least twice a year. 3 times a year would be great. But I just see a Canelo knockout in this fight. The knockout would come late, but he would figure Andrade out. I mean, I'm sorry. No one is going to throw those wide looping shots and not get countered. I don't care who you are. So I might have Canelo Alvarez knocking Andrade out around 8 or 9, around rounds 8 or 9. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next video.